Hello and welcome to Silverstone. We're here for the launch of McLaren's 2025 Formula One car. It is absolutely freezing, so my fingers turn blue, apologies. We've already heard from Oscar Piastri and Andrea Stella, who obviously team principal and one of the drivers for the McLaren Formula One team. Lando Norris has been out on the Silverstone Grand Prix track behind us, getting the first few laps. It's just a filming day. They do learn a few things. All the drivers always say the first laps are crucial. They know instantly whether it's going to be capable of winning a world title, but you would expect McLaren to be in that position considering where they ended last year. But just on the cold, Oscar Piastri, definitely a bit different to how he's been spending the last few months, which was, he said, his longest trip ever since he moved to Europe to start his racing driver career. His longest trip ever back home in Australia. So he's been having a lovely time in the glorious Australian sunshine, and now he's in Silverstone, absolutely freezing. But nevertheless, he is not in a cold mood, I would say. Although with Oscar Piastri, you always get the sense that he's sort of like he's so chilled. He's just doesn't give anything away. He's supremely confident. There's nothing that really phases him, and cold weather certainly won't. And the main message coming out of him so far in this very, very early stage of the 2025 season is, I can be world champion this year. The papaya rules, everything, we'll come and talk about that a little bit later. That's reset now. It's just Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, equal, both gunning for the world title. But I thought that one of the most interesting things hearing from Oscar this morning, or early afternoon as it were, he clarified that with the McLaren PRs, and they said, everybody welcome this afternoon. To just establishing the fact that it was the afternoon, but anyway, I'm gone well off topic, was that his main feeling was that he felt he could be world champion last year, but he sort of wasn't sure. There were little things that he was just not quite so confident about. This time around, he just feels like he's made enough of a step. He's worked on the right areas that he'd identified through last year, and he's just seems to be oozing confidence. And the message is, yeah, I can be world champion. And whereas in 2024 at the start, thought he could maybe get there, but just wasn't so sure. Now, as I said, confident, crystal clear. He's been working a lot in the simulator. He spoke about the end of 2024, how the times where he wasn't qualifying quite as well as Lando Norris ended up costing him in the races. It also made these things like time management worse, because of course if you start further down the grid, there's always going to be a little bit extra sliding because you're following more cars. He says that every little thing that he's identified and worked on sort of benefits him as a whole. So it's not just qualifying, which I thought was a noticeable difference in the messaging. But yeah, just been putting in a shift with his McLaren engineers, and just generally seems pretty happy. I think another interesting thing to note, obviously this is the first time in his still very young Formula One career that basically, every race so far in 2023, 2024, every season has started in Bahrain. This year in front of his home fans in Australia, and what incredible added pressure that brings. I'm going to come talk a little bit later about Lando Norris and this venue, Silverstone, but a home race can often be quite hard for a driver. And Piastri said actually to me, he was happy that back in 2023 he wasn't having to make his debut in Australia, because he was able to go to Bahrain, just finally get in there. I'm a Formula One driver, I've got through that court battle with Alpine, I can just get on with my job and then have the excitement of going home to Australia. Not the case this time. There'll be a lot of expectation on his shoulders. He spoke about how actually with the Melbourne track it's less of an outlier than maybe Bahrain was, and I think that's actually quite a change in how that perception is of that venue, because you think about the Mercedes years, Ferrari would more often than not win those Australian races, even though they didn't end up fighting for the world titles. But the key difference there is that obviously the track was reprofiled, resurfaced, and the asphalt, the surface, physically different. Bahrain, it's ancient, it's very rough surface there, so therefore it can produce a bit of an outlier result. That's Piastri's point of view. Dig into the data for autosport.com at some point, I'm sure. But anyway, yeah, that was basically the gist of everything from Oscar. He's confident, he's happy with how things stand, that both him and Norris go into the season with equal opportunity to be world champion. And
try saying that after a few drinks.
I know exactly, or maybe just as the cold gets to my teeth. And in fact, Piastri was so concerned as he sat there in his enormous coat that as soon as he'd finished his interview, he said he wanted to go and sit immediately in front of a heater.
Right, yes, welcome to F1 2025. We are at the first car launch of the season here at sunny Silverstone. You mentioned the cold.
Yeah.
It is pretty bleak, isn't it?
My brain.
We are go. This is it, the first livery launch, first car launch. I don't think we're going to be getting over there to see the garage. No car running around at the moment. This is the lunch break. So we are going to be hearing the car go around a little bit later on, and obviously try and get some feedback from the drivers. Hopefully Lando Norris will tell us what it's like, that first impression of that McLaren car. But yeah, I spoke to Andrea Stella earlier on, and obviously coming into this season as Formula One world champions, that obviously brings a certain level of expectation, certain level of pressure. You may remember a few years ago when McLaren kicked off the season 2023, there was a lot of bit of mixed message, bit of, almost, it was a celebration of the start of the year, but they were also hesitant. They knew that the development of the car over the winter wasn't as strong as they had liked, and they said that they weren't going to be there, at the front for a little while, and it all was kind of a negative feeling coming from that press conference. Last year it was a marginal improvement. They said, we're confident with the step we've made. I asked Stella earlier on, can we put that into context? Where do you feel over this winter's development? He said, I'm in a good space. His actual words, he said that we've still not run out of steam. In terms of the development rate, we are pleased with the rate of development, but we are on a linear graph and it shows we've not run out of steam. So I think we can, reading into that, McLaren are fairly confident coming into this season. The fact that we are here at Silverstone, they've invited a select group of journalists to be here. That's also a little bit of a flex. I think that if you were a little bit hesitant about launching your car, you wouldn't do it with the world's F1 press sitting across from their garage. So I think, reading into that McLaren are coming into this season on a bit of a wave, as they rightly should be after such an impressive year last year, winning the Constructors Championship. And I think they're looking to take that momentum forward into this year. I think what was quite telling was, a few questions about managing that driver pairing between Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. And, Andrea Stella said, that is a challenge that he's relishing. He wants to have both drivers fighting at the front. Let's see if he's smiling at the end of the year, because I think it could be quite tricky manage two of those. In terms of the car design, I mentioned the fact that they're on this linear graph and making improvements. He said that they're in that they've gone for an innovative design, and they've, as a result of that, it's been relatively challenging approach to achieve the aerodynamic efficiency. So it does seem that rather than resting on their laurels and continuing to develop last year's car, maybe they have gone for something different, and we'll have to see whether that works out for them or not. But of course, over the last couple of years, McLaren have a tendency to sort of start the season slowly and then progress. But the reality is that last year that obviously cost Lando Norris a shot at the Drivers' Championship. The fact that Max Verstappen was able to amass so many points early on in the year because he had a car which was quick from day one. I think McLaren now are focusing on making sure that they hit the ground running in Australia. We've mentioned before about how Oscar Piastri was looking forward to that race, and the fact that that race tends to be a bit kinder to the McLaren, whereas Bahrain has always been a bit of a struggle for McLaren as a season opener. So, McLaren are looking to hit the ground running for this 2025 season, and if they amass points quickly, then that will bode well for both championships and potentially both drivers. So, as I say, the feeling so far is one of positivity from McLaren.
Absolutely. Well, Ben mentioned the innovative message that Andrea Stella was saying. I thought he said, in his classic, very loquacious style and very interesting style, but although a bit slightly frustrating on this side, he said a lot without saying very much. I thought that was, this time of year, you do expect it. But of course, you will have seen what the MCL39, what it looks like, what McLaren have revealed so far, and you'll be shocked to learn on a filming day and with the promotional stuff that they're putting out, few things on the car that in those images, in the little bits of video that are coming out, aren't basically effectively the real thing. It's a classic thing teams do at this time of year. The front and the rear wings, both from 2024. The car, from what we've seen, obviously it's like that, of course, because the real livery is going to be revealed it will have been revealed this time next Tuesday, at the O2 Arena in London. That's why it's been painted that way, in case anybody was unaware of that. But yeah, just from what we can see, the more of the external stuff, the car keeps forward front top suspension, but the wishbone has a very low rear leg. I'm told by my colleague much cleverer person than I am, Jake Boxall leg. The engine cover is the sort of thing where you can see the most difference in the images released so far. The actual intake above the driver's head is more of an oval. It's wider at the top overall, but less bulky above the side pods in some area. The side pods do appear similar, and the floor as well. That's the sort of thing they can bolt on and off. It's probably not going to be the one because it's such a big performance differentiator that we'll see running when it comes to testing and the race. But from what has been released in the images so far, very unclear to confirm that for sure. But yeah, I mean, that's what the teams do at this time of year. But Ben, you mentioned the fact that we're here at Silverstone. It does feel like a little bit of a flex. It's also the big hotel that fans will be aware of. So it's opposite the big wing we can see over our shoulder, built a few years ago. That's one of McLaren's sponsors, so they're able to stay here to keep everything on brand. And I gleaned this morning, Mr. Lando Norris, every time he does the British Grand Prix since this hotel has been open, stays in the same room. Whether it's room number 4, don't know. That was just the ground floor.
Well, you mentioned before, they're actually in garage number 4 for the tests. So if we're looking for omens, there's one of them.
Absolutely. Of course, there's unlikely to be a garage number 81 for Oscar Piastri.
Awesome.
So it's not enough of them. Maybe over there in the national paddock where the other bits are. But
so overall, I would say a positive message from McLaren. I'm trying to think the last time that the world champions went first with a livery launch and actually doing it in person. I say livery launch, car launch, but doing it in person as well. So that, as I say, it all bodes well for McLaren and McLaren fans.
That's it from Silverstone today. Like Oscar Piastri, we are going in a desperate search for a heater to get more. See you later.